Purim itself is like this. What's written in the Megillah that one is obligated to do on Purim is really 4 mitzvahs, 4 commandments. Of course, rabbinical commandments, but 4 commandments nonetheless. That really, there is a level called Divrei Kabbalah. There's biblical obligations, then there's rabbinical obligations, then there's something that's written in Tanakh, in other words, not in the Torah, but in Nevi'im and the prophets, or in Ksuvim and scriptures. And that's a little bit a higher level. That's really what Purim has to it. So now, there are 4 commandments. There's reading the Megillah. There's giving matanos avyonim, giving presents to the poor. There is giving mishloach manos, sending to friends, sending portions, literally. And then there's the Suda, having a Sudas Purim. All 4 of these must be done by day. Now, the later on rabbis came and threw in another one, and that's the Megillah at night. The Megillah at night is also a mitzvah, which is rabbinical. It's not the same level, but it's also, one has to hear the Megillah at night. Let's first talk about the reading of the Megillah. Of course, the reading of the Megillah is quite understandable. That's, you got to remember what's going on in order to know what we're celebrating. So, now, reading of the Megillah is like this. Really, everyone is supposed to read the Megillah. You're supposed to read it yourself. But we have a concept in Halacha, which is known as Shomea Ka'ina. That means if you hear, it's as if you're saying. If you hear something that a Jew who is also obligated is saying, and you're also obligated, and he has in mind that you should get the mitzvah, and you have in mind that you want to get the mitzvah. So if you hear every word, it's as if you're saying it. So really, you're supposed to say the Megillah. So therefore, you've got to listen to every single word of the Megillah. You've got to hear every word. First, there's 3 brachas that the Chazan says. You've got to listen to every word of those 3 brachas. There's Kriyas Megillah, Shasani Samadasenu, and Shechianu. You have to listen to all 3. And then you have to listen to every single word of the Megillah. It happens quite often that by Haman, so people make noise, and sometimes the noise goes a little bit too far, and you might miss some words. You have to make sure that you hear every word. Not only that, if you did miss some, you can always read them yourself from your Chumash or whatever it is to catch up to the Chazan. But you have to make sure to listen to hear every single word. After the finishing of the Megillah, there's another bracha which the Chazan says, and that's really the mitzvahs of the night. Partying at night, the night before, is not the ikar mitzvah, is not the main mitzvah. The real partying that the Megillah obligates us in, which is really doing a mitzvah, is the next day, by day. It does say one should add a little bit to one's meal. This year, I think for the first time ever, the clock's being changed before Purim, and sunset is first after 7, and most places won't even read the Megillah for about 7:30 and finish close to 8:30. You first get home at 9 o'clock, so it's not that much time this year to party at night. But nighttime is not. Not only that, you have to know another thing, that none of the other mitzvahs can you do at night. You want to give mishloach manos or matanos avyonos, which we'll talk about soon. You can't do them at night. Doing them at night does not fulfill your obligation. Now, you can give a present. You can give a present to someone on Hanukkah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's nice. But the mitzvah of mishloach manos is only by day, only daytime. The next day, the day of Purim. Again, I mentioned to you before there's 4 mitzvahs. So let me talk about what it's turned into today. There's a mitzvah of matanos avyonim, giving poor people presents. That's the words of matanos avyonim. And then there's the mitzvah of mishloach manos, to give portions to food portions to friends. The halacha is that for poor people, the minimum is to give 2 people, 2 poor people, at least 1 portion, matanos avyonim, but you give 1, or 2 portions to, and mishloach manos is 2 portions of food to at least 1 friend. right? That is the minimum, of course. Today's day and age. Now, the Rambam says, and all the poskim say, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just to clarify, the two poor people.
Two poor people. Yeah.
One
is one,
yeah.
and Matanas Avionim is two, but each one portion of food, or even cash, which we'll get to soon. But yeah, right. So now. The Rambam tells us that it's more important to expand on your Matanas Avionim than on your Mishloach Manos. Right? If you're going to give more than the minimum that's asked for in the Megillah, which is to one poor person or two friends, better expand on your Matanas Avionim on to poor people than on the Mishloach Manos. Now, throughout the centuries, there were always poor people walking around, you know, if you look at these books from way back, you have the people in tattered clothing walking in front of the shul. And so the way Mishloach Manos worked and Matanas Avionim worked were more or less the same. You know, you sent your kids out with things to friends, and then they went over to the shul with people with tattered clothing, you had nothing to eat, were freezing or whatever, and you gave them some coins and whatever. And of course, you should spend more time on Matanas Avionim than you should on Mishloach Manos. Today, Matanas Avionim has taken on a different look. But it's nevertheless the same level of obligation and a bigger obligation than Mishloach Manos. Today, you don't have poor people standing around the streets. If there are poor people, they don't let you know it. Some organizations will know about it, and they're embarrassed even that they know about it. So we just don't have the same type of system. But the mitzvah, nevertheless, is there alive and well. And more important than Mishloach Manos. So this is important to know in advance of Purim. There are signs up all over the place, and there are gaboim in every shul that are collecting for Matanas Avionim pre-Purim. I mean, some of them will take money on Purim also, but it's important to get this done before Purim. And in fact, you see from all the Halachot authority, from all the poskim, that this is much more important than Mishloach Manos, which hours and hours of preparatory work are put on in every home and running around. And this is much more important. It's done differently today, but it's alive and well. It's done by organizations. Basically, it works with shlichus. I make someone a messenger who will do the mitzvah on my behalf. I'm not going to, if everyone would knock on the person's door and Purim, it would not be all that nice. And, most of the people they don't want anyone to know. So you give it to whoever's collecting and to an organization or whatever it may so be. They will deliver it on Purim on your behalf, and you will be mekayim the mitzvah. And again, that mitzvah is much bigger than the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos. So it's important in these next few days, in your shul or wherever it may so be, that you give money to those that will give it over on Purim day so you can do the mitzvah. Now, there are a lot of questions here, which, yeah?
How about in Yerushalayim, where there's people kind of everywhere?
Okay. Yeah, well you're right. If you're in Yerushalayim and you have people standing around like that, you can, that would be fine. Yeah, that's. In fact, Yerushalayim is loaded with people that can fit into this. Now, the only problem is Yerushalayim is a bit of a problem. Yerushalayim's Purim is a day after ours, so there's a big question in the Halachic authorities whether if I gave the money, let's say I gave the money on my Purim, but it only got to someone else on his Purim, but it's not my Purim anymore. So Purim went by and I never gave to any Purim person. So it's a big shiloh, it's a big problem in halacha. It's not very clear that you're doing the mitzvah. Even more so, even if you're giving, let's say you give to an Israeli cause, someone's going to give it out outside Yerushalayim, where their Purim is our day. But they give it out in the morning, which is still nighttime by us. Now, I can't do the mitzvah of Matanas Avionim at night, right? We said before, they got to be all be done by day. But it's my nighttime, it's their daytime. It's a big question in halacha. So, they know about it, there, and if someone does give it, let's say, to Bnei Brak or somewhere outside Yerushalayim, they know to give it later on in the day. They give it towards the end of the day, which is after daybreak here in North America. Probably the easiest and best thing is to give it local. It's unfortunate, but Toronto has poor people too, and there are more than enough organizations that are collecting that will be given out on the day of Purim, and one will be Mekayim the mitzvah of Matanas Avyonim, and that is what should be taken care of in these next days before Purim. And there are organizations that will take care of it even on Purim Day also, but it's good to get this done before Purim comes in. Now, how much do you got to give? That's always a question. Oh, by the way, if one gives to a family, that's a whole question if it's called two people or one. You got a family, a wife, a husband and wife and kids, 5 people, let's say. So I got two poor people there, but they're all living on one. They're all based on one. There's one breadwinner there, so that's questionable if that has din of 2. So therefore, you really should, once you do it, so once a year mitzvah, you might as well do it right without any question. So better is to give to 2 families to be able to this mitzvah. And of course, you have to give on behalf of everyone in your home that's bar or bas mitzvah. Everyone who's bar or bas mitzvah has to do this mitzvah. These are one of the 4 mitzvahs that you got to do on Purim, and on their behalf it's done. So therefore, you got to give for everyone. Now, how much you got to give? The amount you got to give is really the amount of a small meal. Of course, the more the better. But if someone gives, let's say, $5 or $10, which a poor man can go out and buy himself a donut and a cup of coffee or whatever, that really is, you are Mekayim the mitzvah already, and so that is the mitzvah. Of course, the more one adds, the greater it is. Especially Purim is a tremendous time of giving tzedakah and matanas avyonim. So the more one adds, the greater it is. But that is the minimum. The Mishloach manos is a mitzvah. Go ahead.
Yeah, why are women obligated on this if this is
that's a good question.
time?
If it's a time-based mitzvah, why are women obligated in everything about Purim? And the Gemara asks this question, and the Gemara answers, She'af hein hoyu ba'osei hanes. They were also very heavily involved in this nes, in this miracle. And the commentaries point out that this means 2 things. Number 1 is they were involved in the victim side of it. Everybody was supposed to get killed out. Men, women, and children. So that they got out of it. And second of all, the mitzvah came through a woman, through Esther, who played such a tremendous role in the nest. So they played a tremendous role in the nest, and therefore, even though it's a time-based mitzvah, they have the exact same level of obligation as men do. And that means the obligation of all the halachas. Mishloach manos. Mishloach manos is the second of the 4 mitzvahs of the day. The minimal obligation here is to give a nice portion of food to 2 people. Now, this has got to be food that's edible. You can't give something else. Raw meat, let's say, would not be. You're not. Sorry. I'm sorry. One person. Raw meat would not be good, or something that has to be cooked would not be enough. It's got to be something that's edible. It seems more or less based on what you eat by the Suda. Something that's edible, to sit down and eat on Purim. For some reason, it's come, your yaitza, but for some reason it's become nash. That's become what Mishloach manos. You look through you follow Jewish history through the poskim, through all the halachic authorities. You see that's never the way it was. It was always meats, it was wines, it was all kinds of dishes. Not all the junk that you send today, but that in halacha that's not a problem. But the basis of it is that the again here too, you've got to give it on your Purim and received by someone on their Purim and your Purim. As Shul pointed out in a sefer, that if you leave it at someone's door, let's say, who doesn't show up until after Purim, you're not Yetzer. Now, today we give more than we need to, so you're going to be Yetzer anywhere. Somewhere you're going to be Yetzer anyway. So it's not a major shiloh. Just you have to know that somewhere you got to be Yetzer. It's got to be, it's got to be done with, in the way that you're Yetzer. Children, there's a mitzvah of chinuch. It's brought down that you should let the child at least give to one or two friends to also do the mitzvah of mishlach manos. It's brought down even let the children go to the poor people. Again, we don't have that today. It would probably be a beautiful thing if somehow a child, I don't know how it would work. You write the checks a few days before Purim, but to have a child involved in that would be a beautiful thing. As it's brought down in Pesachim, it would be a harder thing to do, but that also would be a very nice thing.